Mm.
And we are live.
So it's musical.
We're live. Hey, everybody. So, and happy Veterans Day to all of you. I guess yesterday was Veterans Day, um, the officially, and today was the national observance of Veterans Day. So, happy Veterans Day. I almost say happy birthday. Happy Veterans Day to
Yeah, got a
everyone.
couple of those.
Yeah, to everyone who served, and to everyone who has supported someone who served.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, we will um, thank people for, or people thank us for our service. You know, certainly when we're on active duty,
Hmm.
that happened a lot, and it just meant a lot. Today is Veterans Day, and there's a lot of free food flying around there, and hopefully, folks out there taking advantage of that. But it wasn't uncommon for us to walk through the airport in uniform, and people would pay for our food on a regular basis, and certainly mine, when traveling on the way to various places. So just appreciate what people have done and continue to do to support veterans. So to all of you, we thank you for that.
Yes, and so it's always fun. I was telling Mike, it's pretty cool to be adopted as some people who are non-veterans as their like veteran, right? And so when
Mm,
you're in the military, you often don't realize or recognize that everybody's not in the military, right? It seems like within that culture that everybody has served or that everybody knows what it's like, everybody understands what it's like to be a soldier, a sailor, an airman, or in the Coast Guard. And the truth is, that's not true. And so until you have experiences or have friends outside of that, and so being in the military is more than just a job. It's not like you go to work and then you come home and then your lifestyle is separate. Being in the military is more of an experience. Being in the service itself is the lifestyle. So until you can break the gravitational pull of serving in the military service, you don't always really see it from the other perspective. You
yeah,
think?
I mean, yeah. Basically, what Wendy is saying is, when you're in the military, it's like that is the world. It feels like so. Even moving here um, for a while, and I think it's wherever we move, it is um, takes a while to integrate into the community. I mean, to really like be a part of the community. Do things like jury duty. Dare I say? I haven't done that yet, like ever.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully, somebody's done it now. They're watching, like, oh, we got to get them. But
Right.
but those are things that you're able to write in and say, you know what, can't do it. I'm out here serving. Things like getting involved, um, politically or even like with
Hmm.
business. I mean, it's a different level of connection to the community. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, and so we believe and I think there's a lot of on both sides of that thing. We believe that we know what it's about, kind of being outside of the military. When in fact, I don't think we do until we're actually doing it. And some folks, there's a lot of mystery about what it's really like behind the curtains for military folks, and there's a lot of I think a lot of assumptions that everyone makes, and even a lot of biases that we have. So yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah, yeah. So we thought for Veterans Day, I mean, there are a number of things that we could talk about. We're gonna talk briefly about what it's like being
You all,
a
wait a minute.
married couple in the military.
I can't guarantee you all briefly. Briefly, we say briefly
Yeah.
quite often.
Hi, Anna Reeves.
Hey, yeah, we
Hmm.
say briefly quite often, but I
Hmm.
mean, there's no. Hey, we'll ride it till it's done. Maybe it'll be.
Yeah. So anyway, what it's like serving as a military couple. So we're just going to talk about that from our perspective because the truth is that's what we've been from the time that we've met. We actually were both on active duty in the Army when we met. And that has been the story all the way up until 2015. And in 2015, I became a military spouse only, and then in 2016 we both became civilian.
Yeah, Wendy said she'd never marry a military person. Never.
I didn't say I never married a military
No, you
person.
said you would. You said didn't you say like
Oh,
earlier that
I
you would
wouldn't.
never?
I would never.
Yeah,
It
would
sounded like you said something else that I never married a military person.
no. I said no, 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 no.
Yeah,
Of course.
well, I never dated anybody that was in the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was the first one
Yeah,
and the
and the
last.
last. Yes, congratulations.
Yes, indeed.
So,
It's good to be. Good to be here.
anyway, so it's always cool for Veterans Day, and around the year when people thank us for our service, you know, express their sincere gratitude. It's always special when children do it, because it's somehow recognition, or somehow they're embracing, and there's some understanding of what it means to serve, right? And so when you are in military service, a lot of your time is not your own. So I think that that probably has an impact on your relationships. What do you
Um, you mean relationships, like in general?
think? Yeah, all
Oh,
of them.
yeah. I mean, but I mean, I don't care. I mean, because I, I think when you're in the military and you begin to really kind of live it out and travel and all that, I mean, all those relationships. So, I mean, a lot of times they change, and so it becomes about our relationship, right? So that is the marital relationship,
Yeah,
and so because when you leave, I think the family has a an expectation about what it's going to be, and they expect that you're going to be gone and traveling great distances and all that. But what that then creates is this necessity as a married couple to pull closer together and to be your own self-contained support system,
mm,
right? Now, obviously, the culture is such that when you go to places, there are all these people with similar experiences, but your support system and your connection, it really kind of starts at home when you're married and serving.
yeah. And so some of the major differences is that for a lot of military families, I should say, not both people served. I mean, we were
Mhm.
dual military, so that made us even a unique subset within a subset of the culture. And
Mhm.
so, for those people who either the wife serves or the husband serves, and then the other is a military spouse, that experience in and of itself is even different. And so you see, like in movies and with some of these reality TV shows, and different, you hear different stories about how those groups tend to um, really support each other, and they're very close and tight knit. And it's because there's an understanding. There's this mutual, well, there's this shared experience that
Mhm.
we have an appreciation for, and it's just different. I mean, it's
Mhm.
it's really, as you can tell, it's hard to describe unless you live it.
Yeah, it's different. And we were talking earlier though about some things that are perhaps similar because what I'm surprised to find there are a lot of people out there who are doing various things. You know, uh, kind of seeking, or in certain positions that require they travel a lot.
Hmm.
And these folks they've never served in the military, but when you begin to look at where they lived, hey, I lived on the West Coast, lived in Michigan for a while, and I was down in the Carolinas, then New York. I mean, people are jumping around as frequently, or even more frequently sometimes than we do,
Yeah.
and they have to make some of those similar decisions.
Hmm.
Am I gonna take the family on this ride, or am I going to stabilize them, and just be the one who does the traveling around? So I found that that's been a lesson learned for me, the
Hmm.
extent to which people have to make these relocation decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the eye opener for me was around benefits, healthcare in particular,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're in the military, there's no question about whether or not there's healthcare, and there's healthcare for the entire family, and it's a benefit of your job.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like federal government service, or in military service, and then some other areas that is just known, it's public knowledge that that's part of it. I I don't think I really had an appreciation for being outside of the military and how that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I mean, certainly we had friends, and we talk about, sometimes people kind of trying to figure out the healthcare thing, and so I think that that's one thing, particularly if you come in early, and depending on your background, because I grew up, parents had healthcare, went to
Hmm.
school. I kind of rode their healthcare through college, even though I went to Naval Academy Prep at 18 years old. And so, in effect, that was an active duty experience. So,
Right.
all the dental, all the medical, all those things. And then, you graduate from college eventually. And then the Army just had you, you know.
Hmm.
And so, there are a lot of things that I think that kind of become spoiled a little bit in terms of things that you don't have to necessarily worry about. And us being dual military,
Hmm.
well, I didn't have to worry about where you're going to get your care. So then it was about where the kids are going to get their care. Well, typically they got it where we got it.
Right.
So that took I think, a lot of stress off of the relationship. I mean, there was other stress. It was enough, but that was not something that we really had to sweat that much. So,
Right. And so here's why it matters, right? Here's with the relevance of it. So because, for the first 20 years of our marriage, well, let's say the first 19 years of our marriage, we were dual military. We didn't have some of the primary stressors that a lot of married couples have.
hmm
And so with our married couples ministry, we annually ask for feedback and for people to tell us what types of things they want us to talk about or focus on for the year. And historically, finances has come up,
hmm
and it's always been a huge topic. And I
hmm
think when you talk about finances, what's tied to finances is employment, and what's tied to finances and employment are those benefits, right?
hmm
And so the stressors of being a provider, in those circumstances definitely have an impact on marriage. So when you're in a military marriage and you kind of control, as it were, for those variables, do
hmm
you think it's easier to be married in the military or
No,
harder?
no. I think it's as difficult
Mm-hmm.
because, well, when you remove a variable or stressor, I mean, we're human, so oftentimes we'll let something else fill that void in.
Yeah.
And so I would suggest that military folks, as far as the financial struggle,
Mm-hmm.
very similar struggle. In fact, and depending on where you are in your career, what your income is, what your family size is, all those things contribute to that because people often believe, well, if you're military, you got those kids, family, you're good, you're good to go. However, I mean, there are various income levels, and depending
Mm-hmm.
on even where you live and where you have to, house your family. I mean, there's all these things that you have to consider, and so I just think that it's at least as stressful. And then you add war,
Yeah.
add deployment, you add the requirement to stay physically at a certain level, you add the lack of absolute control about whether or not you're going to stay or go.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Move.
yeah, you add these moves, and so in the potential instability that could bring, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of military spouses decide to put their careers on the back burner or slow them down quite a bit, or even give them up altogether
Yeah.
in order to live that life. So I would say that, and I won't say that being in the military is more stressful. I will say, but side by side comparison, there are some things that you have to deal with militarily that you just don't have to deal with otherwise. So
Right. And
yeah,
vice versa.
yeah,
So while there's not really the threat of unemployment, well, at least unexpected unemployment. I mean,
yeah.
when you sign up for military service, you're obligated for the length of your contract. That's
Mhm.
one thing you know for sure.
Yep.
That, barring any, criminal behavior, you pretty much are going to have a job.
And you got to make sure you can't have that can't wait to eat problem either. You know what I mean? Because that'll get you kicked out too. Gotta wait. Can't wait to eat. That's it. Anyway, I'm just saying it will.
Yeah, yeah,
Wait will get you kicked out, and now more quickly than before. So I'm
yeah,
told.
yeah. And then drug use will also get you kicked out.
Illicit drug use will
Yeah.
get you kicked out.
So
Yeah,
it's a different lifestyle.
you're right.
But can you have a successful marriage if you are married and in the military? And the answer is yes.
Resoundingly, of course.
Yes.
Um,
And I mean, is it stressful? It can be, but
mhm.
just like we talked about before, and what we particularly talked about last week, it is about creating your reality, right? You define your marriage, regardless of whether or not you're in the military or out of the military. That's not really the factor of having a successful
Yeah, but I want to be when we say you create your reality. I mean,
marriage.
think it's true, and and there is there's a certain level of reality that is thrust upon you,
Hmm.
and so it's easy for us to say, you know what, it is what you make it, blah
Hmm.
blah blah, right? And
Yeah.
yet these certain variables come in, right? If you're a military person, it would be nice if you just have your family, you go to work, you do your thing, and then you got to come home. But no, there's going to be some stressors that are just inherent to the job, and those are the ones that you can predict. And then there are those other ones.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a requirement to stay in later tonight or for the next several months, as you prepare for certain things. Maybe you're in, say, a command role versus some type of administrative role.
Hmm.
And so as the roles change, there are certain things that are thrust upon you that you just don't have a choice about.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes those do kind of spill into spill over back home
Hmm.
because I mean I had my days where and I have to say most of my assignments, most of the folks I work for, it's great, and there were some days where it was not, and so I come home like tense. Maybe I leave home in the morning tense in
Hmm.
anticipation, and so I think those things kind of begin to have an impact on you, even though those aren't military specific though, because a lot of people have folks that stress them out at work. So I don't know. So that's not specific. But what oftentimes what you can't do in the military is be like, hey, you know what? I'm done. Take this job and shut it. Now,
Hmm.
most people, like non-military folks, aren't going to do that because, well, you got to make money. But there's typically, if you do walk out, there's typically not potentially a conviction coming along with
Yeah.
walking out.
Yeah. Or calling out sick. I mean, that kind of
Yeah.
changed a little bit during the course of the time that we were in, but you couldn't just call out sick from work. I mean, you had to show up sick
Yeah.
and be diagnosed. I mean, and so that's really kind of different. But I mean, aside from that, and what is the point of it? Well, the point is, yeah, we're talking about military couples and military families because it's Veterans Day, so it seems appropriate. But inside our marriage of being dual military, it was a very interesting experience. I mean, because there was no learning curve, right? I didn't have to learn from him what it was like to be in the
I
military
mean,
because
I
I
mean,
had my own
but you
experience.
could have learned something from me because I mean I was really good at it. So I mean, no, I mean
Yeah,
continue.
but I was in before he was. So, in terms of learning what it's like, and so it's different for someone who's served in the military for a period of time, and then they meet someone who's non-military, and then they get married, and then it is about trying to explain what it's like and have an understanding of what those challenges are.
Mhm.
And it's a unique and special thing. It's challenging but also rewarding. um, yeah, it's just, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it the same. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I might do it the same. I might change up a couple of things. I don't know. I mean, it was good. I mean, there's no complaints there. I think, but the whole idea of not having to explain much, as far as about the military, I think most people's experience is that somebody is in and someone is not,
Hmm.
and I think that it's important for the person who is in to be able to kind of describe your day, kind of talk about what you do if you can. And there's some people,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother ball game, who can't say anything about what they do. They
Right.
just can't. And so
Talk about stress.
yeah, and so I think it's important in those cases that you need to find a way to include your spouse in the journey, and whether that be meeting people that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
or talking about what you can talk about, because um, being in the service, there's certain jobs and missions and things like that you can't talk about, but more broadly, maybe you talk about those things. But it is so important that you bring them along for the journey, because over the course of time, growth happens, change happens, and a lot of people look up and they're years down the road and they're so far apart because there's been no growth together over the course of time.
Yeah, and so I mean that comes back to being equally yoked, right? And so we're all familiar with hearing that, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that you um, where you are or where you're going um, needs to be the same, right? You need to both be journeying together, so that because you're both going to grow. That the hope and the idea is that you're growing at the same time.
Well, maybe. I mean, I think certainly
What?
moving at the same time. I think. I mean, if we want to split hairs, I mean, growth happens at different rates at different times. But
Mm-hmm.
even as you're growing, I need to be with you on your journey of growth. Maybe I'm not really growing at that moment.
Mm,
Maybe I'm just doing what I do, chilling. You know what I mean? But as you grow,
mm-hmm.
are you sharing that with me? Are we talking about what's happening with you? Because it is very possible for one person to stand still and the other person to grow,
Yeah.
and there be nothing. But if there's something between you, that is communication, connection, all that,
Yeah.
even as you grow, and if I don't grow at the same rate, that's okay. I
Mm-hmm.
just need to know the person that's growing and changing.
Yeah, but you it also helps to know where you're going.
Who?
Either. I mean, if we're moving somewhere, to know
Mm-hmm.
where we're going. So, to identify what that destination is and then communicate along the way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I mean, and so that just kind of comes back to, I mean, communication and what you talk about, how you talk about it. Uh-huh. I know. Hi, Monica. I waved at you. I didn't say hi. Hi, Elizabeth. And so, or Liz. Um, yeah, yeah. So talking about from the time that you meet, really communicating what your intentions are, what your plans are, what your dreams are, and then continually communicating that along the way
Mm-hmm.
as things change.
Yeah, that's basically what I said. Basically what I said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
No, I mean, no, I don't have anything else. I think it's just important to say again, Happy Veterans Day to all veterans. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Um, and you know what? I do have one thing to say that I need to tell the world right now, or how many people in the world will be watching this.
Okay.
Military discounts are cool, but don't beat people up if they don't get military discounts. You're
That's
welcome.
what you had to say.
That's what I had to say. Yes, it's Veterans Day, right? So, but because people, when we ask, hey, you know what? Do you do military discounts? And people are like, oh no, I'm so sorry. I wish we did. I can't. And they get all. We don't. It's fine. It's really. It's not. It's not that
That
serious.
has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
No, but it doesn't. You asked if I had anything else to say. It's
I know.
Veterans Day.
I mean, anything else to say pertaining to what we were talking about?
No, I'll just say, hey, whether you are serving or you're not, marriage can be the greatest blessing of your life, and it can be the greatest challenge of your life as well. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're military or you're in school or you're working hard or you're starting a business or whatever, it's important to stay connected throughout the journey. That's all I got.
Yes. And so at any given point, you may be in the leading role or you may be in the supporting role, but it is imperative that you are happy to be and be all in on whatever role it is for the time that you're in
Mm,
it. I mean,
yeah.
I think it is so important to
Hmm.
say um, thank you for
Thank you.
thanking us,
Thank
but
you, Mom.
yeah, it was our honor to serve.
Yeah, no doubt. And we continue to serve in different ways. But hey, like when you said, whether you're playing lead or singing background, just be ready to play your position.
Okay, so on that note,
uh,
we'll be back next week and we'll either be talking about kids or no, not talking about, still not talking about kids. Okay,
I
so
mean, we can talk about kids. I
we'll either be
mean,
talking about the impact of children in your marriage or on your marriage or secrets.
oh, I didn't think you wanted to talk about that one. You're kind of avoiding
Oh,
that came up.
that's it.
Hey, we welcome your feedback. Tell us what you want to talk about. Secrets.
Yes,
Is
yes.
it okay to have them? Should you have them? Should everything be an open book? Talk about kids. What's the impact of bringing those little people into your life whose sole mission is to destroy your marriage?
Oh my goodness. All right, so
I don't know.
thank you
Let us
guys
know.
for joining us live again. Until next week, have a blessed week.
Y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.